Hello, a pleasant afternoon to you. Out there, the program is Nigeria Now, where we look at some of the happenings in the country. Possibly we x-ray some of the sectors as well to see how they are doing, whether they are faring well or not. As well, we look at the economy in general. How is it affecting Nigerians? So today on the show, we have quite a number of stories or quite a number of issues we would love to table this afternoon. And please do well to drop your comment, your views, as they are always welcome on the show. I am Sarah Elisha Dasham, and I'm doing the program with Rachel Tansy. Good afternoon, Rachel.
Afternoon, Sarah.
All right, now let's just dive straight into the matters for today. We would love to start by looking at the issue of food inflation. I mean, we've been talking about this in various ways, Rachel, and then it is coming up again. The issue of food inflation is something. I think our food inflation is over 40% presently, and that
Yes.
has affected even, I think, just recently. I think we're yet to get our inflation for this month, but we got the
Before
inflation
June,
for
yes,
last
it's out
month,
there.
and we know how it is. It's almost 30. I think it's almost even getting to food
Food
inflation as
inflation
well.
is we're
So
about 43%.
you get. So
Yes.
when you look at food inflation, and then with the fact that people have been asking the government to dive into agriculture, I think this morning we saw people's concern concerning food importation, even though I'm not totally against it. But I feel that in as much as we import certain food, we should also not neglect our own agri sector. Now we're seeing that that has affected malnutrition, especially where we're going to look at children. Because if I'm going to look at malnutrition, anybody that's going to look at malnutrition, we're looking at maybe children from the age of maybe 10 downward, because we've seen stunted growth. I mean, this has been coming up over and over. People that have researched about this, analysts have given their point of view, and we're seeing that the statistics keep going and going and going high. And then it's happening at a time like where we're seeing even more children falling victims to the issue of cholera. And so you can look at it from whichever angle you choose to look at it. But I think it's very important that we look at the issue of food inflation as well as it's affecting malnutrition. Now, let's not forget that malnutrition it doesn't have an age limit. We're just looking at only children for
Because they are
because
developing
it's
age.
more obvious. But when you talk about malnutrition, everybody can actually be a victim of that, because when you don't have basic diet, we're seeing that it's very difficult for people to have proteins, especially because we know it's essential in every food. So if you don't have meat, you're supposed to have egg. That is for animal protein. But then how about even the plant protein? Beans, the likes of it. How many people can even afford to have that? So this is something I really feel that maybe in as much as we're seeing our government trying their best to put their hands everywhere, but you can't be everywhere. There are certain sectors that you should give it maximum attention. And we're saying this is one of those sectors that maybe we can say the government is trying, but their best is not best enough. We saw the food trucks that are supposed to be, shared, and a number of people that think this is more like a drop in an ocean because you don't even feel its impact. How many people are going to have all of this? So I think it's really, really important that we open it as much as possible to look at what can be done concerning the issue of food inflation. I remember when you said food is not scarce. When you go to the market, you see
see,
food, but how many people can afford to buy it?
Exactly. Miss Ella, when you said malnutrition is even for adults, it's true. Most of the health situations we find ourselves, sicknesses, diseases, is as a result of the lack of one nutrient or
Or the
another.
other.
So even as adults, we can be malnourished, just that it shows in things like kidney problems, diabetes, hepatitis, heart attack, stroke, and all of that. This is how malnutrition shows itself in adults, that you are not taking the necessary nutrients, your diet is not balanced, and all of that at every level. I believe the concern is more on children, first because they are at their developmental age, and then secondly, they are dependent. For an adult, we can say you are responsible for yourself. I am responsible for myself. So if I decide to be careless with my health, with my nutrition, with what I consume, I will answer for myself. But when it comes to a child, they are in that position where they have to wait is what the parent is able to give to them, and they are developing. It is very crucial. Bones are forming, their cells are building up, muscles, the brain, and every organ is at its developmental point. So if they don't get it right, that's why we see stunted growth is one of the easiest. We've seen studies left, right, center on our paper that say certain sicknesses that our children are going through right now is as a result of malnutrition when they were toddlers, when they were at certain age, even during pregnancy and all of that. So that is the challenge. And the question is, or rather the problem is, if the parents don't get to see, the child don't eat. If the parent don't make ends meet, of course, we can imagine even before this inflation, we already have the issue of malnutrition, stunted growth. We've had the issue of poverty and hunger. This is way before we had food inflation going as high as 43 to 44%, because that is the margin where it is at now, at the moment. So before then, we had this issue. Talk more of now, Sele. The number is going to increase. And of course, if a household is surviving on 1 meal, 2 square meals, we barely have households with 3 square meals. There are, but the number is decreasing. So it means even that child is just getting 1 good meal or 2 good meals, and we know that it is way above that for them when it comes to growth. I think that's the major concern for everybody, is that when the economy is bad, is everybody that feels it. That's why I said, and the other day I made a simple example. I said, because you're 18 doesn't mean when you go to the market you will get a bag of rice as 20,000 and a 60-year-old man will get it as 80,000. It doesn't work like that. So it's the same way. Because that child is a child doesn't mean they will go to the market and ask for eggs and get it free. Doesn't mean they will ask for milk or vegetables or fruit and get it cheap. Everybody gets affected with the economy. And the sad part is children feel it more because they are developing. This is where they need to form everything. They need all the nutrients they take. If not, 10 years from now, they will come down with one sickness and another as a result of what they didn't get at the ages they were supposed to get it. So it's really a sad one. So when people are taken out on the street, it's beyond a civil. We just look at a figure, right? We don't look at every other person that is affected. If we would sit down and look at everybody that will be affected or is affected by the situation of this country, I don't think anybody will sit down at home and think this problem is for some people. I don't think anybody. Yes.
Because it's very true. I mean, if we had to go back 10 years back or so, even while parents were complaining of getting certain children meal, we know that, for example, cereals are being given to kids from particular age. I remember clearly then parents do say, okay, while I can actually keep giving the child this particular cereal, I can actually supplement it with maybe getting all of these other soya beans and all of that. But right now, how much is a measure of soya beans? Even for the baby, because we're talking about stunted growth, especially for children. And then it tells later on, just like you rightly explained, that what you don't get now, 10 years, 5 years from now, it would definitely tell. You know, there was a joke somebody jokingly said, even if everybody else will leave him, his white blood cells will not leave him, because that is what fights for you. So imagine when your white blood cells don't get what is supposed
what they need to
how
fight for
will
you.
the white blood cells help to fight for you when every other person will leave you? So I really think that we need to take this issue of food inflation seriously. No wonder we're seeing UNICEF and the like saying the government needs to introduce maybe certain taxes, removal and all of that, something subsidy in a way to help people to be able to afford this. But we're still trying. We're seeing that right now there's not even food in our food reserve in the country. So I wonder how the government will do that. When you look at our agriculture, it's really suffering, because we rightly mentioned time that you can't, back was then you could actually get maybe a basket of tomatoes at even 5,000 naira, good big fresh looking
Yes,
tomatoes. We're not talking about those
UTC
ones that are
tomatoes.
almost
Yeah.
exactly those ones that are almost spoiled. And now we're saying that research is coming out to say that there are certain fungi and bacteria that no
That
matter
can
how
be
much you
cancerous
boil,
in the
never
future.
die. So remember, this
Yeah.
is what people are resolved, because that is what is available.
Yeah.
Because if the desirable is not available, they're available because they're desirable. You have no choice but to eat what you can find.
Yeah.
But we're saying that you are eating that and then you're eating disease. We're saying even medical doctors complaining. People cannot even afford drugs
Yeah.
because they are way, way expensive. So I hope that the government looks at it from these various points
We
of
hope so,
view.
Sally.
Now, still talking about it, not far-fetched from what we'll be talking about. Secondly, the fact that governors and ministers will be meeting concerning the protests that are supposed to hold exactly a week from today, because we know by next week, Thursday, will be 1st of August, and there is supposed to be a protest. And we've seen that the president has pleaded with Nigerians, pleaded with you, say, let us solve this issue like a family matter. So we need to have a round table and sit down like siblings, parents, and say, what is the way forward to all of this? And I wonder, why did we have to wait for it to get this bad before we felt the need to call in? And I'm just like I said, Rachel, I'm seeing this in not just Nigeria, but Uganda is having its own fair share. I'm seeing them talking about craft protesters. Kenya, as it is, Nairobi has been shut down because of the protests. So, and all of them is linked down to the policies that the government have put in place that is not favoring the people. People are really going through a lot of hardship, tough time. The economy is biting harder by the day. If you were actually maybe using the keke or whatever you're using for transportation, for example, if then you're spending 200 now, 100 to go, 100 to come. Right now we are looking at more than 200 or 400%
Yes.
increment in transportation. And you can't even bargain because we end up being insulted. That is to tell you how things are. And I just, like I said in the morning, I wish our government would look at it that this is not a fight on the present administration. Of course, on the standard point of view, the the minister for the FCT was saying the fact that it's not a miracle. Of course, nobody's expecting a miracle, but Nigerians are looking forward to seeing what are the measures, what is the government putting in place. Of course, I know after the approval of the 70,000 minimum wage, governors are meeting, people are expecting to see, is it July or August salary that it will reflect? Core members are also hoping, is it 73 or 77,000 that will be given to us? So many people are just hopeful about this whole thing. And even when you look at the 70,000, it's not much. Rachel, you will recall that if you go to the market right now with 10,000, you will come back with this small policy, and you wonder, wait, was I cheated in the market? How
Yes,
much? You keep calculating
try
and
to
calculating, and it's actually the worth of what you went through. So this is how bad things are. Of course, we're seeing people saying this is going to be like what happened during the hashtag ANSAS. But we said something yesterday in the morning. If we are afraid, the aim for the protest in 2020, did we achieve it? Did Nigerians really see the result of it? Did we see bad governance ending? Are we still suffering from corruption? We're saying that Nigeria is rotting. Who is responsible for Nigeria being the way it is? I keep asking this question. Our leaders are forgetting the fact that you benefited from this system 20 years, 25 years. Why are you refusing to make the economy favorable for the generation that is actually around presently? Talk about education, it's fading. And these are leaders that enjoy free education. But right now, even if it's a government secondary school, you can't go there free. Even if the admission there is free, you have to buy uniform and books. You hear parents gisting and saying, I remember when I was in boarding school back then, in fact, we don't have to come back home because of the milk, the bread. In fact, it was a particular wax that we use as compound wear. And Rachel, you and I know that we use check as compound wear. In fact, you have to buy the checks. It's very expensive right now in the market.
Yes.
So we can go on and on and on. Of course, I would say we are wishing for the good old days, of course, but why can't we keep having good days coming? And this is where you ask the government, what are you doing to maintain all of these things? You enjoyed it, so why don't you want this present generation to enjoy the same thing?
Sally, if I can time travel, I'll go back to the good old days of Nigeria. I would love to witness a system that worked. I would love to witness what it means to have value for your money. I don't think you and I have experienced that. We have never, all our generation have witnessed inflation upon inflation, our parents asking us to go to school, when you finish, you get a job, and reverse was the case. Our generation didn't see any good Nigeria. And I think if I could pay to see that time that people were buying things in kobos, I would love
Remember,
to
I
see
took a
that.
sugar cane for 50 kobo, and
Yes,
I wish for that.
I
again.
wish exactly, but we're too little to even really say if we're, because we were being given. Now I wish as I am earning is 50 kobo. That is a major. You understand what we're
True.
saying? And when we talk about these protests, and in 2022, I think we would say we were not heard. But fast forward to 2024, the government is scared. And this is where I realize that the 2020 hashtag EndSARS protest had an impact. If the government had to hide what they did, there was an impact. If they are still referencing to it, it had an impact, and they are scared. You can hear the tone from the government because they have no idea, and they feel it might be worse, because once it was police brutality, now it's not about the police, it's about every other thing that is not working. So it's not just the youths that are angry, it's the parent that their child is at home, it's the parent that is seeing his 10-year-old looking like they just turned 6. It's the person that cannot pay rent right now. It's not just somebody that is worried that he will be harassed with holding an iPhone. No, it's somebody that is saying that they can't afford the basic needs for the children that they are brought into this. It's more than that. And yes, the government is worried because they remember there was once a time Nigerians were fearless and the economy wasn't this bad. And then imagine now that it is worse and a lot of people are going through a lot. What will be the effect of this? So the more they talk about it, the more I see the fear in how they sound and all of that. They are worried. There was an impact. We didn't know the impact not until today. And then if you are meeting now, Sele, from now to the 1st of August, there is something that the government can do that will make everybody shut up and not go out for a protest. And what pains Nigerians the most concerning our situation is that the government knows exactly what they are supposed to do. Nobody wants magic or miracle. Nobody's that stupid. But we know that from today till this to the 1st of August, there is something that the government can do. If the government should crash the prices of goods in the market, nobody will take on the street. If the government should sit down and say, okay, we are supposed, as drastic as you floated the currency, that's how drastic you can take a measure that from now till Friday, the end of another FX exchange window and week and all of that, we can see a difference in our currency. What does that automatically mean? That certain things will go down in the market. Why is the government sounding like they do not know what they can do with immediate effect that will look like a miracle that will change the lives of Nigerians? They know. That will change the mind of anybody out there who wants to take on the street. So why are they refusing to do it? But because they are just bent on having their way for some reason. That, you know what, we have done this, we are sticking to it. Even if it's not working, we are not going to change our mind about it. Do something for Nigerians that will make them feel and know that the government wants to do something. I think if people are even busy collecting bags of rice, they might not go out on that protest.
They might not even remember.
On a lighter note, Sele, you understand what I'm saying?
True.
By the time people are busy rushing to go and have their own share of that 20 trucks of rice, they might not go on. But where are the rice? We are not seeing them. So what is even the distraction that the government can bring? I'm sure they are cooking up something. We'll wait and see what distraction the government will come up. But I know that there is a window that the government can do something that will make the youths and everybody not take on the street.
You know, Rachel, all of this pleading coming from the federal government, I was expecting this to come earlier before now. But I'm not surprised because over the years, the government have always chosen to wait for the dying minutes before you see them trying to put up a show. And I say it's a show because once you feel okay, you are able to buy time, and then we're back to square one again as if nothing ever happened. And you rightly mentioned there's something the government can do that might look like a magic or a miracle. Now, time has been given to the government over and over. This is not the first time. Of course, not during this present Tinubu's administration, where people have been raising concern about food in particular. Let's do something. Insecurity, herders are clearing our food. Please, let's do something. And it seems the government did not pay attention to the farmers. And here we are. Right now, the government even has no direct impact on what is happening in the market.
Yeah.
What am I saying? You don't have an idea how people come about planting and harvesting their produce. So how can you now influence the price of goods in the market? How? If only you did what was expected to be done 3-4 years back, maybe, just maybe, there was a time we could say when it comes to production of onions, we can rub shoulders with other countries. When it comes to the production of particular things, we can say, yes, we are among the top 3, top 4, top 7. But right now, where are we? Production of what? Before we even knew anything called oil, how were we thriving? And no wonder we go back to when you say, you just wish we could go back to that time where everything was working. And yesterday I made mention of the fact that even those who were around during the military regime, would tell you, they enjoyed the regime then because things were working. Despite the fact that, yes, it was just more like you didn't have your freedom to some extent. But I mean, everything was check and balance. In fact, nobody needs to tell you that when you go to the borehole or to vote, you need to queue up. By default, you'll be on the queue waiting for your turn. But that is not what is happening now. The government has reduced Nigeria to an animal farm that people struggle for everything. Transportation, you struggle for it. Food, everything. Admission to school, you struggle.
Yeah.
Our parents would tell back then, when you go, there's a job waiting for you. Immediately. Right now, you finish BSc or whatever you do.
Even do master and PhD
do how
and
many
still be
degrees?
unemployed.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Richard, doesn't change anything.
True.
Because this is where we have found ourselves. We have reduced this country to become what I just don't know how to describe. But let's just hope that whatever meeting the governors and the ministers are able to do, it's one thing to meet. It's another thing to provide solutions that
Sure.
work.
Yeah.
So let's just keep our fingers crossed, and we hope that the government really know what they will do. Now, quickly to round up the show, we're saying that we have a new talking about MPR, monetary policy rate hike, interest rate, and I mean, it seems as if I love a picture Guardian posted yesterday, I think, on the paper, trying to get the inflation at the same time trying to hold the interest rate, and it seems inflation keeps running, and then
Yeah,
you're
it's running.
struggling to to bring it back. I really love the way they posted this, and then it's just giving us a picture of this is what is happening. And here we're seeing operational private sector complaining. Of course, businesses will suffer. We're seeing manufacturers saying, what do the CBN want us to do at this point in time? And of course, CBN has stated categorically, the more inflation keeps going up, the more we keep increasing the rate. But it breaks my heart because you remember, Rachel, when we're looking at the fact that people even borrow from banks, not because there is a business, but because they are hungry. Now, everything we've been talking about today, Rachel, it is bringing us to one thing: hunger, poverty, failed governance. That is the entire thing we've been talking about. We still come back to the same point. The fact that a number of things are not working, that is where we are at this present point in time.
At this point, I honestly don't think the Central Bank of Nigeria knows what they are doing regarding our monetary policies in the country. I don't think the Central Bank of Nigeria, it's almost like they are in a fix or in a position where this is the most we can do. It's not the best, it's just the most we can do. And we have put in a tight monetary
Policy.
policy. So we are going to stick with it now, despite knowing fully well that it is a very bad decision. So at this point, I believe the Central Bank of Nigeria is just hanging in, because there is no meeting that there's no MPR increase. The difference is probably the base points in which this increase is being done, but there's always an increase. On what basis? That there is inflation. Is there ever no inflation? And your policies are still responsible for the inflation. So what are you doing? What is the Central Bank of Nigeria trying to do? I really, rather than having an MPC meeting and just increasing the MPR, I wish the Central Bank of Nigeria, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, will come out and explain to Nigerians what they plan to achieve at the end of the day, because inflation never stops. It doesn't matter. Inflation is part of the economic system. It is there. It's just how you control it that makes it least visible. It's not obviously out there. So what are they planning to aim to drive? What are they driving at with this tight monetary policy? Because so far, so good is not doing us well. It's not doing us well. So I just hope a better explanation to where are you heading towards with this tight monetary policy. If it is long term, when do Nigerians start seeing the dividend of what you're doing? If not, I don't think the CBN is really in control as they might appear to be, because it doesn't feel that way. If they are, we should start seeing better results by now.
Honestly, because nobody's feeling the impact of all of these policies. Nobody's feeling, and just like you said, it seems as if the CBN doesn't want to shift or shake a little just so that things will be better. You know, somebody once said, maybe, I remember when we had the new currency, the new Naira notes that were being, and somebody said, maybe we should take down from 200 Naira down to 1,000 Naira. Let our highest denomination be 100 Naira. And let's try and see what impact it will have in our economy. And to some extent, Rachel, I said, okay, let me remember back then. And it's actually true. That was when our economy was functioning. But the more we kept introducing new denominations, that was when we saw inflation was not, feel like it was running rapidly and something like that. But just like you said, let's just hope that CBN knows what they are doing with all of these policies. Well, thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
As well, thank you to our viewers, thank you to supporters, and every other person who made this program a success. See you tomorrow. Have a great day ahead.